Hermione Granger and the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 2. Mafalda's Warning. During her year at Hogwarts, Hermione and Parvati Patil forged a friendship over a quid pro quo, to use a Latin phrase. Hermione would help Parvati with her academic skills, and Parvati would help Hermione with her social skills. Parvati's twin sister, Padma, was in Ravenclaw and considered the smart twin. Parvati wanted to change that with Hermione's help. Parvati was by far Hermione's least annoying roommate, and Hermione missed her company. Dear Parvati, I hope this letter finds you and your sister well. How has your summer been going? Have you started to study schedule? Have you started the study schedule I set up for you? I'd be curious to see what Padma thought of it. I have a rather odd social question for you that I hope you can help me with. In the Muggle world, we have postmen and women instead of owls who deliver our mail from house to house. Our postman's name is Finnegan, and he's always very nice. Every day he comes to my house and tells me a funny story about something that happened in my little town. He makes me forget how much I miss you and everyone else at Hogwarts. The problem is, I don't know what to say to him after he tells me one of his stories. I always get flustered, and there is always a quite awkward pause. Do you have any suggestions? Thank you as always for your help. I can't wait to get back to Hogwarts and start our second year. Do you have any plans for the summer holiday? My parents and I are going to go to London and may see a theater show. I will make sure to tell you all about it. I eagerly await your reply by owl, Hermione. As the printer whirled to life, Hermione fiddled with her wand. She had never felt more complete, more whole, than when her wand chose her at Ollivander's wand shop. The wand, 10 and 3/4 inch long, made of vine wood, and possessing a dragon heartstring core, seemed like an extension of her hand. Ever since she left Hogwarts and rejoined the Muggle world, where performing magic was forbidden to underage students, Hermione missed constantly holding it and feeling its intricate grooves. To have it in her hands again was so calming. She turned to get another envelope from the shelf and accidentally knocked over her quill and ink. Imabolus! Shouted Hermione without thinking. The inkwell and quill froze in midair. Hermione felt a cold, burning sensation slide over her body as soon as she realized what she had done. She snatched the quill and ink out of the air and put them back on the shelf as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just performed magic outside of school, as if she hadn't broken the number one rule of being an underage witch. Hermione could feel a bubble of anxiety rising within her. The bubble practically exploded as she heard a sharp rap, rap, rap on the window. She jumped and nearly dropped the ink and quill again because her hands were shaking so much. Hermione looked towards the sound. There, on the window ledge, was a tawny owl with a letter in its beak. It was not the usual school owl that came each day to pick up and deliver her letters. This one she knew was different. With a feeling of intense dread, Hermione opened the window and took the letter out of the owl's beak. The owl flew away at once. As her hand shook, Hermione inspected the letter. Her name and address were written carefully in dark purple ink, and on the back of the letter a wax seal held the envelope flap closed. Hermione's fingers traced the wax circle and a large M in the Ministry of Magic emblem before sliding beneath it to open the envelope. The paper, written in the same purple ink, read, Dear Miss Granger, we have received intelligence that a Hoover charm was used as your place of residence this afternoon at 16 minutes past 4. As you know, underage wizards are not permitted to perform spells outside school, and further spell work on your part may lead to expulsion from said school. Decree for the Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery, 1875, paragraph C. We also would like to ask you to remember that any magical activity that risks notice by members of the non-magical community, Muggles, is a serious offense under Section 13 of the International Confederation of Warlocks Statute of Secrecy. Enjoy your holidays. Yours sincerely, Mafalda Hopkirk. Improper use of magic office, Ministry of Magic. Hermione dropped the letter because she was shaking so hard. Expulsion? Mary Granger was the first of Hermione's parents to come home that evening. Bert had a patient that took longer than he had expected. She found her daughter crumpled on the floor, sobbing. Mary had a flashback of the previous summer when she found Hermione in nearly the exact same position. Hermione had been accused of cheating on an exam and was crushed to have received no credit. Mary rushed over to Hermione. Hermione, what's wrong? She exclaimed, wrapping her arms around her daughter. Hermione tried to answer, but the sobs made it nearly impossible. Mary just sat with Hermione until Hermione calmed down enough to be able to finally say the words. I'm gonna be expelled, she said, and then started to cry all over again. Mary took the crumbled paper from Hermione's fist and read it for herself. Hermione, you're not going to be expelled. You'll be expelled only if you do more magic. Here, she said as she held the letter out in front of Hermione. Through her tears, Hermione reread the letter. Further spell work on your part may lead to expulsion from said school. Oh, she sniffled. Hermione felt her body start to relax and the bubble of anxiety start to deflate, ever so slightly. Yes, said Mary, tucking Hermione's hair behind her ear. See, all you have to do is make sure you don't do any more magic while you're at home. But it was an accident, said Hermione through her leftover tears. I didn't even mean to do it. She felt the bubbles start to rise again. It was pure instinct. I knocked over my ink and quill and I just froze it, just like that, in midair. I didn't even think. It just happened. Well, Mary said, that just goes to show that you're certainly meant to be a witch. If you can do something like freeze a quill in midair, that's pretty impressive if you ask me. Mary smiled and squeezed Hermione a little tighter. I'm so proud of you, my darling, she said. Have I told you that yet today? Hermione smiled. Thanks, Mom, she said. She took a deep breath to push the last of the anxiety bubble down. Where's Dad? Oh, his last patient ran over, so it's just you and me to make dinner. What do you feel like making? Something cool. It's been dreadfully hot all day, Hermione said. Cooking, similar to potion brewing, would help her relax a bit. It really has, hasn't it? Mary agreed. Let's go then. We can talk about our trip to London, why we cut up some vegetables for a nice summer salad. Hermione, Bert, and Mary were all seated round the small circular diner table, enjoying their summer salads, when there was a quick rap on the window. It was another owl Hermione had never seen before, but this one didn't look nearly as official as Mafalda's from the Ministry. As Hermione raced to get her letters from the owl post, her parents eyed the owl with contempt and a little bit of fear. Hermione paid them no mind as she struggled to open up the window screen. It always gets stuck. To let the ashy gray-brown owl onto the ledge. Out of its beak, Hermione packed a small yellow envelope. After tying the 4 letters together with some twine, Hermione held the string out for the owl to take. The owl seemed to shake its head no, and flew away without taking her letters. How peculiar. She just had to wait to see if the regular owl came later that evening. Hermione took a quick glance at the faded yellow envelope, but she couldn't tell who it was from. The handwriting wasn't familiar whatsoever. A feeling of dread quickly bubbled to the surface. Had her assumption about the owl been incorrect? Was it another letter from the Ministry? Had she done something else wrong? A spell without thinking again, perhaps? Still examining the envelope, Hermione walked straight past the kitchen table, eager to get to her room and open the mystery envelope. Hermione? Bert called. We're not done with dinner. Oh, sorry, Dad, Hermione said, and begrudgingly returned to her seat. Instead of eating, however, she just inspected the envelope. The writing wasn't familiar, but Hermione finally concluded it was written by someone younger. It was printed instead of written in cursive and just seemed oddly spaced, which made Hermione feel a bit more confident it wasn't another letter from the ministry. Her heart slowed down slightly, but not fully. Must be an important letter, Mary said. Who's it from, dear? That's just the thing, Hermione said. I don't know. How peculiar, murmured Bert before taking a large bit of lettuce. There can't be too many students at your school, right? He asked, chomping away. Certainly not in my year, Hermione said. It was true. Hermione's class were all born in the thick of the Wizarding War. Tragically, not many families survived, and those who didn't weren't focused on starting a family. Compared to the other levels at Hogwarts, Hermione's was smaller by at least half. But she didn't want to share that fun fact with her parents. They did not have to worry any more than they already probably did. Thankfully, the subject was dropped and substituted for their upcoming vacation. Have you decided what show do you want to see when you go to London this weekend? Mary asked, taking a sip of her water. Oh, yes, Hermione said, snapping back to attention. I really want to see Les Miserables at the palace. You read the book, right? Bert asked. Yes, Hermione said. 3 times now. I loved it. Have you? Oh, it's been years, Bert answered. You should read it again, so it's fresh in your mind, Hermione said. It's 1900 pages. And you have until Friday, Hermione said. You should be okay. I was actually thinking of leaving first thing Friday morning. That way we can have the day to explore, Mary said. Okay, so Thursday evening. Get to it, Dad, Hermione said with a smile. Even though their upcoming trip was the most excitement she would get to experience since she left Hogwarts, and talking about it was fun, Hermione tried to eat her dinner as quickly as she could so she could take the mysterious envelope to her room. She couldn't, for the life of her, figure out who the letter was from, and she still had a nagging, anxious thought it could be from the ministry, even though that made absolutely no rational sense. She barely had chewed the last piece of lettuce before bouncing out of her chair and taking her dish into the kitchen to wash. As soon as her large oak door slid shut, Hermione inspected the mystery letter after plopping on her fluffy maroon and gold bed. Her parents had surprised her when she came home for the summer with a new bedroom decor. They had hoped to recreate Hogwarts, though Hermione didn't have the heart to tell them that the Hogwarts decor was much more sophisticated than a generic maroon and gold striped blanket. Hermione's heart ached slightly, missing the comfortable sophistication of her dorm room, but it was forgotten as soon as she looked back down at the letter in her hand. In a careful hurry, Hermione ripped over the envelope and pulled out the parchment. Dear Hermione, I know you don't know me, but I kind of know you. My name is Ginny Weasley, and I'm Ron's younger sister. This year will be my first year at Hogwarts, and I can't wait to finally meet you. Ron talks about you all the time, and you seem really smart. I'm smart too, but I don't have anyone to talk to in my family. Well, Percy is smart, but he's also very annoying. You probably know him since he was the Gryffindor prefect last year. I'm so excited to finally go to Hogwarts and meet people like you who are smarter and more interesting than my family. I love my family very much, of course, but I want to have as much adventures as Ron, you, and Harry Potter did last year. What is Harry Potter like? He seems very exciting. He reminds me of Gilderoy Lockhart. Have you heard of Gilderoy Lockhart? He's a very brave wizard, and goes on all kinds of adventures. That's kind of how I imagine Hogwarts to be, especially with Harry Potter there. I've stolen Ron's Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Goshawk, though I doubt he'd noticed it is gone, and I have read through most of it. I was disappointed to find jinxes and hexes aren't really covered because I had hoped to learn some to use against my brothers for my first year. Have you studied much about hexes and jinxes? I heard from Ron that you performed a perfect body binding curse last year. I'd love to see you do it again once we get to Hogwarts, and maybe you could teach me. Ron, George, and Fred said that I have to take some sort of test to find out what house I will be in when I get to Hogwarts, but they won't tell me what it is. Can you tell me so I can study for it? Is it a spell I have to do? I'd like to prepare for it because I really want to be in Gryffindor with you, Harry, and Ron. I really hope you and I can be friends. I refuse to use our family owl, Errol, because he's really old. Plus, I have to share him with the whole family and would never get a chance to send anything. So I made friends with one of the school owls Professor McGonagall would send to tell mom and dad whenever Fred, George, and Ron had attention. I saved him all kinds of insects to eat, and he comes to visit me once a week. I'd really like to keep him a secret so I don't have to share him with my brothers. So please just send your return letter back with this owl at the same time next week. Hope to hear from you then, Ginny Weasley. Hermione quickly reread the letter a second and a third time. She was so excited. Ginny sounded absolutely brilliant. Basically, it sounded as though Ginny was a female, smarter version of Ron, which would be, frankly, a breath of fresh air. Hermione decided then and there she'd take Ginny under her wing and made sure her transition to Hogwarts was a smooth one. She remembered how nervous she had been about the sorting ceremony and definitely didn't want Ginny to worry about it. Actually, the sorting ceremony was one of the best parts of Hogwarts, and Hermione was looking forward to experiencing it this year without the nerves. Hermione decided to hold off on writing a return letter, mostly because she wanted to do a little bit of research before replying. She'd have to look up this Gilderoy Lockhart fellow tomorrow. Hopefully, he'd be mentioned somewhere in the Muggle library. If not, Hermione had already planned on begging her parents for a quick trip to Diagon Alley, the premier shopping village for all things magical, when they visited London next week. They'd be so close after all that it would be silly not to go. Going to Diagon Alley was just the smart thing to do. Though she knew she should get through at least 100 more Latin flashcards to keep up with her schedule, Hermione found her mind wandering while lounging on her bed. She knew she had heard the name Gilderoy Lockhart before, but she couldn't place it. Suddenly it hit her. Gilderoy Lockhart was the author of Magical May, which had been advertised in the Flourish and Blots flyer Hermione got each week. Flourish and Blots was one of Hermione's favorite shops in Diagon Alley. It was about halfway down the main street on the left and made Hermione smile every time she saw it. It was completely filled to capacity with books. Shelves upon shelves lined the walls, all the way from the floor to the ceiling. Every shape, size, and color was represented somewhere within the store. The front windows usually contained displays of gold embossed spell books the size of paving slabs. Just thinking of the store made Hermione's heart skip a bit. Each week, the store sent out a weekly advertisement with the week's best sellers. For those, like Hermione, who couldn't make it to Flourish and Blots whenever they'd like, they included an order form to have books delivered by Owl. Hermione rifled through the large stack of papers on her roll-away desk and finally found the bright lime green flyer from Flourish and Blots. Her eyes fell upon the small square advertisement on the top corner. Magical Me by Gilderoy Lockhart, on its 21st straight week on the Daily Prophet bestseller list, is a must-read adventure from start to finish. Only 8 sickles and a knot. Get it today before they all fly off the shelf. She grabbed her small purple beaded handbag a gift from her grandma on her mother's side, and checked inside to see how much wizarding money she had left. She had planned on getting more exchanged when she and her family went to Diagon Alley. At first glance, she saw 2 galleons, a handful or so of sickles, and even more knots. She definitely had enough to buy it. Hermione filled out the order form and placed it in the exact change into a small envelope. Then, on second thought, she threw a couple of extra knots in. She took the order from back out and wrote, "Rush order, please. I've included extra to cover the cost." The worst part of not having her own owl was having to wait for the school owls. She got lucky with the owl Ginny had sent her letter with, but her usual school owl didn't normally stop until late at night. Hermione knew she was being unreasonably impatient, but she wanted to order the book as soon as possible. Once Hermione's interest was piqued, she could not rest until it was satisfied. As the minutes and then hours ticked by, Hermione wondered if the ministry owl Ginny had sent intercepted her usual owl in transit or something, because her usual owl was late. She knew she should be packing her bags for their trip, but Hermione had her mind set on ordering that book as soon as possible. Finally, she heard the familiar scratch, scratch, scratch sound of the owl's talon against the window screen, followed by a low, solitary hoot. Hermione jumped to the window sill and raised the screen. "Hello," she said softly, and ran her finger gently across the owl's feathers. The owl hooted a reply. "I'll be in London for the weekend," Hermione continued, "but I'll make sure to keep an eye on our hotel room window for you each night." She smiled and held out her envelope with the book order, as well as her other letters Ginny's owl didn't take. "This one is to go to Flourish and Blots. This one goes to Ronald Weasley. Please deliver this one to Parvati Patel, and this one to Neville Longbottom. Finally, this one goes to Professor McGonagall at Hogwarts." The owl took the letters in its beak and held out its leg for Hermione to place the postage rate in its pouch, which she happily did. As the owl flew into the midnight blue sky, Hermione took a deep breath and tried to watch the winged mail carrier for as long as she could.